and say, I like that one, and that one, and just give me a quote, and they buy from your design, your development, which is a very important change that has happened only in the last few years. But it's becoming more and more relevant, and it actually enables suppliers to become more of a partner to the customer than just merely a supplier of raw materials. And I think actually, if there is one thing that we should try to focus our attention on, is to try to make that transition. As long as we just supply raw material or a garment or a wash to an end user, we basically only one of the many options that they have. And it becomes really a discussion over price and delivery. You never really an important part, an important component to your customer. But if you can manage to actually bring more value to the conversation, if you can come up with creative solutions, if you can help customer resolve their problems by offering new solutions, that's when you become a partner. And partners are more difficult to get rid of. I can always get rid of a supplier if I can find the same product cheaper somewhere else. Being the cheapest supplier to anyone is never a long-term proposition. You can only be the cheapest one until somebody else decides that they really want your business and they will go and undercut to other parts of Asia, because now that China is becoming a little more expensive, people decide that they don't need any more. But if it's only a number game, if you're only looking for the cheaper source, you know that these guys are already looking at Africa and other places where it can be even cheaper than here. So the key, once you get your customers in here, and this industry here is developing wonderfully, and it's growing very, very fast, and it's achieving incredible results within very few years. But that's not enough. Once you have the customers here, don't let them go because they find that Africa or Cambodia or Laos can be cheaper than you are. You have to keep them here by becoming partners, by offering them something that they cannot find easily in other places, or they have to realize that starting the same process somewhere else involves huge costs, and it doesn't really justify a small difference in the FOB price. One example for a brand, and I talk about Levi's because I know the company very well. I used to work there, but also because they literally wrote the book on how to make jeans. They invented the product, they started making it, and they've been teaching the whole world how to make jeans for a long, long time. So when Levi started, they had a small factory in San Francisco. Actually, if you go to San Francisco, you can still visit it. It's on Valencia Street. It's a very, very small building. And they would basically make as many jeans as they could sell, and it was mostly for the local consumption. Then, as the brand became more established, as they developed a bigger business and they needed to make more goods, they did open more factories, but they also started to work with other outside suppliers. Now, the thing with Levi's is that they always had a very, very strict control over the production of their product. So they would design in San Francisco, they would create the tech pack, very strict specifications. They created testing methods and quality standards. So they literally taught everybody else how to make jeans. And it didn't matter if a garment was made in a factory in the States or in Mexico or in Tunisia or in China. the product was consistent because they expected very high level of quality specifications. Eventually the markets became so big that Levi's decided that not only they would manufacture outside the US, they would also set up satellite operations. So they created Levi's Europe to service the European and North African market. They created Levi's Japan for the very important Japanese market. They created Levi's India, which I believe is still today the only office that is autonomous. They can design their collection differently from San Francisco. And these offices were both sourcing offices and sales offices. So Levi's established a network around the world. A lot of the manufacturing was still being done in the US. All the 501s, 501 denim were manufactured in the US. We had factories in Texas, in California, in other parts of the country. The big change happened in about 15 years ago when Levi's decided to shut down all their factories. They decided they did not want to be manufacturers any longer. They thought it was more convenient for them. It would give them a bigger margin and bigger flexibility if they started using factories outside their country. And they basically shifted from being manufacturers of goods to being basically a marketing company, marketing distribution company. Even more recently, they decided to actually pull back all of their decentralized design and to a certain extent sourcing, and they centralized everything again in San Francisco. So Levi's today designs in San Francisco, manufactures pretty much everywhere, and distributes everywhere. And so the goods are still American, they're designed in America, but they are being made and sold everywhere. Retail is a little bit of a different story and a bit of a mixed bag. Of course, if you are a retailer, more often than not, you don't have your own manufacturing, your own production. And so retailers have always bought anywhere they could buy their goods. And they basically always operated on a very simple principle, and I wrote it right there. The oldest marketing principle probably that we know in retail. Buy them high, sell them cheap. So especially if you look at the big American retailers, their strategy was always be really big, keep growing, keep selling more and more product, but make sure that you always buy it cheaper and cheaper so that you can sell it cheaper to the end customer. The absurdity of this is that today we can buy jeans cheaper than we were buying them 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. If you even look at the statistics that we saw briefly this morning with Sandeep about the Vietnamese industry, you see the volume is growing, but the average selling price is still going down, which is insane if you think about it. Absolutely insane. The cost of goods keep going up. The cost of cotton is going up. Raw materials are going up. Labor is not getting any cheaper. But still, the prices that people want to pay you are getting smaller and smaller. And it's a reality that unfortunately we had to live for a long time. And I really don't know how to change it, but we do need to change it because the product that is in the store is getting worse and worse and worse by the day. And eventually, even the customer who was looking for the cheap bargain is going to be fed up and say, no, stop it. You can give it to me for free. I don't want it. It's so bad now. In fact, without naming names, if you look at the big Swedish retailer sitting now on $4.3 billion of unsold inventory, I think it should be a very, very loud alarm for everybody who's operating like that. We need to get to the point where we make a better product again. And if we have to sell it for a little bit more, so be it. If I go to a store, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to buy this because it costs $5 more than it did last year. If the product is good, I'll pay the $5, the $10, $20 more. It's something that I have more in the heads. It's more of a psychological thing, that they don't think they can raise their prices. So they always look for the cheapest possible source. In our world, what does that mean? It means that today I make my goods in the States. Tomorrow the States are too expensive. I move into China. China is becoming expensive. I move to Vietnam. Vietnam is becoming expensive. I move to Africa. It just keeps moving. And the only justification for that is that the apparent cost of goods is lower. And I say apparent because sometimes people just look at the FOB price and they simply forget to consider all the other things that go around it. The longer lead time is expensive. The fact that you have to train new factories, new vendors is expensive. And if you have quality issues because you start with a brand new vendor, at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to pay for it. Yeah, you can send all your debit notes that you want. You can write all the claims that you want. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the goods in your store and you cannot satisfy your customers, you're the one who's going to really lose out. So the first obvious consequence when this started was that domestic manufacturing base in Western economies was wiped out. It's virtually impossible today to produce large volume jeans in the US. It's virtually impossible to do it in Europe. You can still have your niche product. You can find a factory that makes your small runs, but the large volumes are gone, and so we're basically forced to go and source elsewhere. The one big exception to this actually is the Inditex group, which of course you're all very familiar with. Inditex is probably the biggest successful retailer of the last few decades. And one of the reasons why they've been so successful is really that they figured out a way to shorten their delivery time, their development time. If you going back to Levi's or Gap or the big guys, typically the time between the design of a product and the delivery in store used to be about 18 months. Then now they're doing fast delivery. It's like 12 months. So it's a very, very, very long time. And especially today that fashion changes so fast, it's very, very, very risky. So Zara and Inditex decided that they wanted to make it very, very short and keep injecting new fashion and new product in the stores. And so their strategy was actually to keep a lot of the manufacturing very close to home. So by keeping that the local supply chain available, they are able to deliver from concept to store in like 2 months instead of 1 year. It's a massive change, and it gives them a lot of advantage over their competition. The theory is that by making it locally, they're going to be so expensive that they can't even compete with the other guys. The reality is that the only number that really matters is what is left in your store at the end of the regular sales cycle. So the only thing that you should really worry about is how many units can I sell at full price? Because of course you can always get rid of the rest by selling 30% off, 40% off, 50% off, 60% off, which is becoming the norm today. But that means that everything that you thought you were saving earlier is wiped out. And sometimes you're lucky if you can break even. If you can have an inventory that turns fast and you can sell a lot of what you're making, then of course you don't have this kind of problem. You can make your profit there even if you're buying at a little bit of a higher cost. Like I said, change is probably the only thing that is constant in our life and in our business, and we see a lot of challenges coming up every day. Trade agreements, tariffs, duties, quotas, they've been changing since we started doing business with other countries, and they're still changing. NAFTA is under discussion. The TCP, the other trade agreements keep changing, and it's impossible to tell where we're going, but one simple change in a trade agreement means that one country can be in or out of the game overnight. And it's something that we absolutely have very, very little power to change. Political instability, what we're seeing today, unfortunately, in today's climate, is a lot of nationalism and protectionism. People say, oh, I need to protect my country. It's America first, it's UK first, it's Germany first. It's all nonsense. But what it does is it makes it very difficult for people to operate in a normal situation. We spent decades, centuries, opening up to the rest of the world, and now some countries are trying to close the borders. It's never going to happen. Even if the US decided today that it cannot import a certain type of goods into the country, it could never happen. There's no manufacturing that could replenish it today. You see, Harley-Davidson, for example, the European community decided to put a new tariff on motorcycles coming from the US. So what happened? Harley-Davidson decided to start manufacturing motorcycles outside the US. Instead of generating new jobs for American workers, we're actually eliminating jobs, and we're just making it more difficult for everybody. But that's something that happens. We have nothing, very, very little that we can do. The next one is really important. New local international laws and regulation, in particular, environmental and social regulations. We see, and I'll talk about China again, you see what's happening in the textile industry in China, where a lot of factories and dye houses and laundries are basically shutting down overnight. And they had a good business, they had successful sales, but because of the new regulations, they were forced to make a decision. You either comply with the new environmental requirements or you shut down. And if you have never invested in making your production sustainable, it becomes a very, very big cost, very big expense. Now, where this country has an advantage is that because it came a little bit later, most of the structures here have been set up in a way that is more environmentally friendly, and for sure, it is within all the international requirements. Actually, last year I visited here one of the best, most environmentally sound laundries in the world, and it's here in Vietnam. It's Cytex. I don't know if it's anybody here from Cytex, but that gives you obviously an advantage. People who used to source from China now are looking for other alternatives, possibly in the region, and if you can offer a sustainable product and you can offer social compliance, that's the other thing that Cytex is really great at. They not only do the environmental part, but they're also very good at the social part of the equation. The one thing that is happening that is interesting, but is going to change the dynamics again, is sort of an equalization of labor cost. As standards of living keep rising, and rightly so, around the planet, people demand to be paid more. It's just logical, and it's rational, it's the right thing to do. But the moment the standard of living of one country rises, then your labor cost becomes more expensive. Now, a lot of people like to manufacture in Bangladesh because the labor cost is as low as it possibly can be. But the moment the Bangladesh industry adjusts the cost of labor to what it should be, you will see that they're going to have a bigger challenge. It's not going to be that easy to convince people to manufacture there. Of course, and I didn't mention it here, but of course the other side of the coin is that as the standard of living goes up, people want to buy more goods, and they can afford to buy more goods. So if you look at India, Vietnam, and other countries here where the economy is growing so fast, not only the conditions are getting better for everybody, but the market is becoming very, very, very interesting. So we see it in India, we're going to see in Vietnam. You're going to see local brands that will service the local market, because there's going to be an increase in demand for the product. I started going to India a long time ago. There were 3 denim mills. There was very, very little jeans anywhere. Today, India is the number 2 fabric supplier in the world, the number 1 market for jeans, and the fastest growing one anywhere. And if you can imagine that India, with a population of 1.4 billion, is it 1.4 now? Probably by now it's 4.5. If you imagine that the market, the average Indian customer owns 0.4 pairs of jeans, think about it. 1.4 billion people, if tomorrow they decide they all want to buy 1 more pair of jeans, those quantities are mind-boggling. It's really unbelievable. It's not going to happen overnight, of course. You need the middle class to grow. You need the culture to shift. Right now, you see a good penetration in the menswear market in jeans. The moment women's embrace it, it's going to shoot through the roof. But there are opportunities. So I would urge people not to just focus only on US and European markets, because, and I'm no economist, but my sense is that if we're lucky, over the next decade, we're going to see the North American and the European economy flat. That's if we're lucky and if everything goes well. Where it's growing, and where it's growing really fast, is in the rest of the world. So from South America to Asia, Southeast Asia in particular, eventually Africa, which is now the final frontier for cheap labor, but eventually it's going to become a huge market for goods as well. And so as you improve your manufacturing standards and you improve your capacity, think about the local markets too, because that's really the future for a lot of the factories. And there's new technologies, of course, automation, robotics, AI. In theory, they can eliminate a lot of the labor cost. In practice, I think we're still several years away from something like that being applied to garment manufacturing. It's funny because it's one of the lowest paid jobs in the world, and it's considered one of the simplest things to do, but it's actually really difficult to make a good pair of jeans or a good garment. It takes skill, it takes a lot of planning. You have to know what you're doing. So robots are still a very, very long way away from being even remotely close to doing that. Actually, I was watching a documentary on the BBC recently about robots, and they were showing this guy who designed 2 robots. They were assembling an IKEA chair. If you ever bought from IKEA, you know it's a nightmare. You have to get all the pieces and assemble it yourself. But this particular chair takes about 15-20 minutes to a person, average person, to assemble. The robots took about half an hour. So 2 robots could not do the job of 1 person. And in jeans manufacturing, other than pockets maybe, and other simple operations, it's still very, very difficult to really implement robotic alternatives. So our jobs are safe for a while. The faster turnaround requirement, though, is there, and it's getting more and more of an issue. If you are shipping from here to the other part of the world, you have to consider very long shipping times. You have to consider longer production time and planning, and so you cannot be really a fast solution provider. You need to figure out ways to become faster here, but also maybe air freight goods, or figure out ways to make the whole process more compressed. One of the odd effects of globalization is actually a return to global sourcing, and that's one of the reasons. As we become more and more global and we try to do everything everywhere, we realize that sometimes we need to have the local supply to be fast, and sometimes just to give us something that is closer to the taste of the local population. It's really hard to imagine that I can design goods in New York and I know exactly that they're going to be liked and loved by everybody around the world. It doesn't happen that way. Uniqlo is one of the most successful retailers in the world, and when they try to sell to the US, they found it very, very difficult because their fit and their sizing doesn't work for the US market. So they do very well in New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, but if you consider the rest of the country, where people are, on average, quite big, it doesn't work. Inditex, Zara did the same thing. They decided to concentrate their sales efforts on the two coasts, but basically skip the rest of the country because they did not want to invest into creating large sizes, which is obviously an opportunity for other retailers. There's always two sides to the same coin. So basically trying to summarize, we have seen a lot of, a lot of changing, and we will still see a lot of changes as we move forward. Big customers shifting from one country to another, from one supplier to another, based mostly on cost. Try to shift the conversation from cost to the whole package. If you give them design solutions that are creative, if you give them faster turnaround times, if you give them a better quality, you have a much stronger chance of becoming a partner rather than just a supplier. And eventually, as the global economies are more connected and as the standard of living starts to equalize around the world, we're going to see different opportunities and different changes. So the big suppliers in the East will start manufacturing more for the East than for the West. A lot of Chinese factories don't even want to deal with US customers anymore because it's an hassle. The prices are very, very low, and it's a constant demand for something they don't really want to do when they can sell the same goods on the local market for higher prices. So I'm not giving you any quick miracle solution, but be prepared. The change is going to be there with us all the time. Just be smart, just trying to figure out what your customers really need rather than what they're asking you. They will ask you for a cheaper price. They don't need a cheaper price. They need to keep a good margin. They need to keep a quality product that they can sell in the store at full price. So that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have questions, please ask them now. Please, you can stop me. I'll be around for a while. I'll be here, of course, for Sandeep's presentation. And thank you very, very much for your attention. Thank you.
Please give a big applause to Mr. Stefano. Thank you very much for such an interesting but informative presentation.
Yeah, questions.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Did we have questions?
Yeah, we have.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's nice. Isn't that nice? Okay, I'll have
Any of our audiences who may give any questions to Mr. Stefano, please raise your hand.
Stefano, you already spoke about robotics. So my question is, okay, you are saying it's a long way away when robots will be sewing the jeans. But let's take a hypothetical case that it does happen in next 4-5 years, that we have factories which are working, where the robots are working, sewing, and even washing, with very limited human intervention. How will it affect the entire apparel sourcing globally?
You mentioned one part of the process, and I didn't talk about it, which is the washing. I think the washing is probably the only area where we actually seen a big effect of automation. People started years ago to develop brushing robots, then they developed spraying robots, and then eventually they developed lasers to do a very good job at replicating what skilled operators could do. So as of today, we are seeing a very fast growth in that area, where factories will introduce a lot of robots, lasers, and possibly brushing robots to replace the human element, which means cheaper cost to them after the initial investment is absorbed. It means better quality, it means faster delivery time, it means less turnaround of people, because if you, again, that's something that looks so simple and so easy, and people don't want to pay for scraping or whiskers. but it's really, really difficult to do. I would like anybody here to try and get their hands on a mannequin and try to do a proper whisker job or sanding job. It's a difficult job. You have to train people. It's a very hard job. It's very, it can fatigue you, so you can't really do too many hours without really getting very, very tired. So lasers in that case are a good solution. That means the people who would have been employed to do that job, they will not be employed. I think this is your point. As we introduce new technologies to replace humans in certain phases, then we don't have jobs for those people.
But do you think the factories would actually shift, the manufacturing would actually shift to Europe and US? I mean, if that happens?
In some case, I see a new possibility for local manufacturing in the US and in Europe. But I see it mostly as a way to provide faster turnaround rather than to replace the large volumes. Like I said, I think it's going to take many years before the whole supply chain shifts, even to lasers. Lasers are a beautiful thing, but they are still expensive. If you have a large operation that is already employing thousands of people doing hand operations, you really don't want to invest into. You're not talking about getting one laser machine. You need 100 if you want to do a decent volume, and so a lot of people will be a little bit hesitant. But yes, I can see the birth of small factories around the world in parts of the world where it's really, really expensive to manufacture anything. But using technology, you could possibly do it. But again, I think it's more going to be for fast turnaround than to be cheaper or to replace your other sources.
Any more questions?
Hi, Stefano. Thanks for the great talk. I very recently moved into the sourcing profile, so it helped me a lot. I have one question. Coming on the other side of the table, I realized that we are in a time where probably transportation is not so difficult. Like you said, we are able to source from across the countries. We have multiple suppliers supplying similar kind of products. So I would, at the cost of being offensive, I'll use the term Me Too products. Everyone has all kinds of products. So what do you think will be maybe one or two priorities that a person like me who wants to source should take care of before deciding on any country? If by and large the price and the product and the transportation is more or less taken care of?
I think you probably already know the answer. Some countries are better than others in certain product categories, so you will try to go there first. But mostly, you want to figure out a way to build a long-term relationship with your supplier. You don't want to just keep going from one to another and start again tomorrow, and then tomorrow you'll find somebody else who's 50 cents cheaper, and you shift everything to the other one without knowing if there's going to be a sustainable business relationship going forward. And help your suppliers become better partners to you. They don't know. When you were there as a fabric supplier, you didn't know what your customers really wanted from one particular product. They just said, I need this fabric and I need this price. And you say, okay, I'll do it, and this is the delivery time, and blah, blah, blah. But you didn't know what the customer was trying to achieve. Maybe you could come up with a fabric that gives multiple washes instead of just the one product they're doing now. And so you're helping them solve the problem going forward. And when you're on the other side of the table, that's basically what you have to do. You have to think like your customer now, and think like your supplier now, and help them help you better.
Thank you.
Any questions, please?
Thank you so much, Stefano. It was a wonderful presentation. And may I request a round of applause again for Mr. Stefano. I'll be making a presentation in 2 minutes. I would request all of you to kindly stay here.
And now we would like to introduce our next presenter, Mr. Sandeep Agarwal. Mr. Sandeep, a founder of Denimsandjeans.com, an international fashion website which has been catering the denim community for over a decade now. Mr. Sandeep is a seasoned professional who has worked in the textile industry for over 25 years, especially the denim industry. He has started the career in 1993 and quickly traveled around the world on various marketing assignments, took up some international postings such as Hong Kong, London, etc. from previous companies to further market the products. Và tiếp sau đây sẽ là phần hội thảo do ông Sandeep Agarwal trình bày. Ông Sandeep, nhà sáng lập của website Denimsandjeans, một website thời trang quốc tế đã trở nên phổ biến trong cộng đồng ngành hàng denim trong hơn một thập kỷ qua. Ông Sandeep đã hoạt động trong ngành công nghiệp dệt may trong hơn 25 năm, đặc biệt là trong ngành hàng denim. Khởi nghiệp vào năm 1993, ông đã nhanh chóng góp mặt trong các hoạt động marketing trên toàn thế giới với các hoạt động đa dạng trên phạm vi quốc tế như Hồng Kông, London, v.v. Hiện nay, ông đã ngày càng khẳng định vị trí của mình trong lĩnh vực marketing cho các sản phẩm thời trang trong ngành hàng denim and jeans. And now, without further delay, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Sandeep Agarwal. Everyone, please give him a big hand.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me start by asking a question. How much time all of us spend online in various networks, whether it is Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and other social media? I think probably not less than 1 hour or 2 hours every one. I think if you take a weekly average, probably we are spending maybe 10 to 20% of our time online. So did we imagine many years back that this is something which would happen, that we will not be able to live without our devices, our smartphones and other devices, even for few hours or even for some few minutes also. So the things are changing. We have allowed our personal space to be invaded by this online media, social media, and other such interactions which we are doing in online space. So does it look difficult that in the coming times we would be transacting our businesses, a small part or a major part of our businesses online? It's already happening in some industries, but maybe not in others. So what we feel that in our industry, which is the denim industry, this is also something which can happen and which should happen. When we are speaking about online sourcing, we are not talking about that we are replacing the offline interactions, what we are doing, or like, let's say what we are doing today here in this show. But what we can do is make these interactions more meaningful. We can filter the information online, and then it gives much more meaningful interactions for the offline interactions. That's what we feel is the direction. So let me come to the denim sourcing model what we are following today. When I'm talking about denim sourcing, I'm mainly speaking about fabric sourcing right now here, and we'll add later other components later on. So how does the business happen between a typical buyer and a supplier? It happens either through individual meetings at the buyer's office or the supplier's office, It happens in trade shows, like what's happening here. People meet, they initiate the business, then follow up. It happens at mill weeks, which the large retailers and suppliers, brands, they invite the suppliers and they come there and make their presentations and selections are made, and that's how the process starts. So these are some of the main kind of interactions what buyers and suppliers do. Now let me just take because since I'm talking more about fabrics, let me speak about a typical mill, denim mill. So when we are talking about the development, let's say a typical mill has developed 100 new products, 100 new samples. It may be variations also, of course, nobody can develop 100 new products as such, but it might be with variations. But the products shown to the buyers may be 50 or even less. This is just a hypothetical example. I'm just trying to come to a point. When these products are shown to the buyers, the samples requested may be around 10, tested, and finally the supplier gets an order of 2 or 3 products. So in this case, what we see is that the supplier, which is the denim mill, is not able to reach out all their products to their potential buyers. Now we are talking about buyers. Let's say, again an example that a company feels that I can reach out to 100 buyers, but they may be able actually physically able to reach out to 30 buyers, 20 or 30 buyers physically, because they have physical limitations. It's not possible to carry samples to so many buyers or to reach out to so many buyers simultaneously. Again, the samples shown as in previous slide may not be all the samples what they want to show. So ultimately what we see is that the mills probably are not reaching out all their products to all the buyers. Ultimately, if you speak of an ideal situation, would be that the company should be able to reach out their products, all their products, to all the potential buyers. So, but that is very idealistic situation. But we cannot achieve that, but of course we can try to improve the situation. Now, I mean, same thing what it's repeating here, the number of developments are not reaching the buyers. It's not easy to show the most relevant products to each buyer. Normally what happens is the companies take their products to the buyers, and they find that most of the products are actually not required by the buyers. They are not the really relevant products maybe. I mean all of them, all the products are not the really relevant products what they want to show to the buyers. And ultimately, as we saw before, the potential buyers reached through the traditional methods might be 30% or less. This is again a figure we have just come out with, but of course this is with the experience that what we see in the industry last few years, many years. Time to market is long, it's very long. When we, as Stefano was talking about Inditex, so they had a success because they reduced the time to market their products to the customers. So that created a success for them. So when we are talking about the denim mills or others in the supply chain, if they are able to reach out their products faster to all their potential buyers, then probably it creates success for them. Ideally, what should happen is getting developments from suppliers immediately to reach the buyers globally. The companies should be able to reach out all their products, new developments, to the buyers globally. I mean, it should not happen that, okay, they have come out to the main few buyers, they've reached out to the main few buyers. The buyers should be able to give instant responses to them. There should be, ideally, should be a product-wise interaction between buyers and suppliers, which happens in personal meetings also and through emails and other methods. Product-wise interactions, when that happens, the suppliers are, they get a much better idea on what is happening as a response to their individual products. Then the buyers also have their individual inspirations and requirements which they come up during the time, and during various times of the year, they go for inspiration tours. They come out with different inspirations, and they would like to reach out these inspirations to the suppliers, to the mills. Now, when I talk about more meaningful meetings, it means that, let's say if a buyer and supplier are supposed to meet, and a buyer is able to know beforehand what are the kind of products supplier is bringing, and they can shortlist what kind of products they really want to see, then probably it might create more meaningful meetings between the buyer and suppliers. So, I mean, when we are talking about all these challenges, including the cost challenge, marketing is a big cost challenge. When we want to reach out to more buyers, we want to reach out more of our products to them, then the cost increases a lot. It is ultimately a game of time and cost management. Big companies are able to do it. They are able to reach out to more buyers, more of their products, while the smaller companies may not be able to do it. So, to address, let's say a part of this problem, we have tried to create two platforms. One is an online platform, and one is a mobile platform which we are launching shortly, the D brands. Just a moment, some snack. No sound. So we shall be launching this app very soon, and the purpose of this app is that we should be able to connect with the buyers and suppliers on an individual basis. We create a kind of networking around denim industry globally, and there are more meaningful interactions between the buyers and suppliers. And this, as I said before, denim, you definitely cannot replace physical attributes. You cannot understand denim without really touching and feeling it. But I think 60 to 70% of a product can be understood if it is presented well with all the details of the product, which I will show you later on. So if you see here, just taking a short tour of this app, exhibitors and buyers can log in to visit their dashboards. Each buyer will be checked before they are joining the application. It will be we'll keep it very restricted so that both for the suppliers and for the buyers, so that only very genuine companies from both the sides are there. Now we will have public and private products in this. The companies may not like to show all their products to everybody. So these will be, many products will be public, but of course the companies will be free to keep their products private, which they may want to show only to selected buyers, not to everybody. So the pictures are not very good out here, but if you can see, what we are trying to do is basically one of the things we spent a long time on is to get the digital images properly with the right kind of cameras, light, everything. So that is very key part of this whole platform what we are doing. So the idea would be that when you see a product and you really zoom into it, you should be able to see the real character of the product in terms of fiber, how the yarn character looks like, or how the color looks like, or weave structure and everything. So it gives a very good, something, our target was that it is something like which, seeing a product which probably is at a distance of, let's say, 1.5 feet from your eyes, something like that. So this is what we targeted, and this actually we spent a lot of time on this. Now, if you see on the top, there's you can refine your products. Let's say if you're looking at a product from a particular country, and you're looking, let me give you an example. If you're looking for an 11-ounce stretch, super stretch, in super dark color from Pakistan or India or anywhere else, with 2x1 weave, and maybe coated. So different. You can add. You just filter down the product, what kind of product you're looking for. So ultimately, when the database is really ready, so this is what the buyers will be able to do. They will be able to filter out the kind of products what they're looking from globally. As we have seen in WhatsApp, our WhatsApp or all other apps, the notifications keep us busy, all the day. They keep us informing us what's happening, who's doing what. And so this is what we are trying to do in this also, that the buyers and suppliers will be able to get notifications of the latest activities on the app from different sides. Buyers will be able to know what suppliers are doing, and suppliers will be able to have some feedbacks from the buyers. So this will hopefully create more live interactions between both sides. If I'm interested, let's say if I'm a buyer and I'm interested only in salvage denim, so maybe I can create a category for myself. I'm just looking for salvage denim, and I can just, just whenever salvage denims are there, I can just get those products, just have a look at those products. So you can just create your own categories, whatever you like. As I said before, buyers, this is a two-way interaction. It is not only the suppliers showcasing their products to the buyers, but it is also the buyers who will be uploading their inspirations and requirements for the suppliers. So they can upload the requirements to all the companies who are on the app, or they might limit it also. They might send it to a specific company also. So this creates two-way interaction between both the sides. Now this is, as I said before, we have the private products. When we have private products, it means that only those buyers who are approved by the supplier can see those products. So this is the process where the suppliers can approve a buyer for entering his showroom. Chatting is, of course, going to help a lot when the buyers and suppliers chat on the platform with each other, and they also know that they are chatting for a particular product or for otherwise, and that they can give the history for for the same. Plus, the buyers can also network with each other. They can, as I said, we'll try to create a global denim community with this app, so people interact with each other. The serious business people will interact with each other through the app. Now, when I was talking about saving time, so just to take an example, if let's say if a particular supplier wants to meet a buyer and he's got a number of products, and if he requests his buyer to check out the products on this app beforehand, before he comes, so the buyer gives a feedback that he wants to he's liking those particular products. So it will be easier for the supplier to carry more relevant products, and he can do a better sampling for those products rather than focusing on all the products what he has. As I said before, the first phase is for the fabric manufacturers, and later on we'll add the technology suppliers, accessory suppliers, and chemical suppliers, so that we try to cover the entire supply chain of denim through this app. For the supplier side, we will be, as I said, it will be limited. We'll try to keep it very limited in the sense that only those companies who are really focused towards marketing through this new media, you can say, will be joining the app, and who can come out with requisite collections. And we are doing the digital images we'll be doing it for them if they want. If they are able to, or if they are able to do it on their own as per our standards, then we'll allow them to do it. But otherwise, normally we would prefer to do it on our own, so that there's a uniform standard across the site. So this was I was talking about the app, and of course there's the website. We can just browse through it for a second. So this is a common, both are working together, both are supporting each other. Go down, please. Scroll down. Just show the category area. So let's say I was giving the example. So I'm stretchability. In stretchability, if we click, we are looking for power stretch. Let's choose the blend. You're looking for linen. Okay, so we can kind of keep on filtering the information like this, even by the companies. If you go down, we can see we can also go do it by the individual company. Go down, please. So by the country, by company, by everything. So ultimately it gives a lot of options for the buyers to see what kind, check out the products, what they're looking for from reputed suppliers globally. So this is it. I think this is an initiative, and I hope the industry would like it, and probably we can take it ahead and make some contribution to the industry in reducing the time and cost of marketing and buying. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sandip Adarwa.
Any questions?
Thank you, Sandeep. We'll have to see. Obviously, we'll have to see and play with the application to see what the most relevant areas are. But don't you think that when you're talking about textiles, don't you think that the number one feature that we will never be able to solve with these is the fact that you really want to touch and feel the product?
Absolutely. I told you that before. I mean, touch is such an important part of the product. But let's say if you're talking about any product, let's say a stretch product. So I mean, as a buyer, probably we would like to know what kind of stretchability it is. I mean, which is a physical attribute we can get it. I mean, the testing standards, what kind of growth, what kind of recovery is there. And when we see the digital image, I mean, I probably would like to show you the digital images later on, and try to understand whether because we have gone deep down to it. When you see the digital images in very good quality and shot properly, then when you see the product, you get a very good idea, because you understand that what level of product is that. As I said, it is only 60 to 70% of the product. 30 to 40% you will understand only after touching it. So it's not a replacement. It is not a replacement for touching. It is only addition to the efforts of marketing, that you at least make a few steps. You are a few steps ahead when you are doing this. rather than when you go physically. So we are trying to remove the physical limitations of reaching out more products to more buyers. That's what we're trying to do. And of course, the final decisions are always taken after physical testing and all those things. So it's not a replacement, but it is only a complement to the physical activities what we are doing.
One more question. Sorry, I didn't see there on the different pull-down menus. Do you have anything there that talks specifically about the sustainability aspect of the products that are listed?
Sorry?
The sustainability aspect. So
Sustainability,
if I'm looking for just
yes,
organic
there will be a section for sustainability, which we are trying to refine further. I mean, you know, basically in terms of, we are for the moment we are showing the sustainable products together at one place, but we'll refine it further in terms of water usage, in terms of cotton usage and other things. So you'll definitely see a sustainability section in this. And also one more thing is that we would like to probably launch seasonal collections on this, so that, you know, the companies who are on part of it, they can launch their seasonal collections and we can invite globally, market the launch, so they can, the companies, the buyers can come also see the seasonal launches.
Thank you, Sandeep, for the nice talk and useful features. My question is, you have not gone into that area. When you start areas like chemicals and dyes, do you have a thought to put something like through AI or through any other measure that somebody is looking for a particular color and say I am offering 3 or 4 colors, but can the technical person from that side mix 2 or 3 and see whether he can reach a final color through my colors or not? You have, which can be built in through the using 3D products and helping with the AI. Do you have such plans going ahead?
We have thought about it, but currently I think this the technology is not available, because what happens is when you shoot an image, there are bound to be some differences in different cameras, what, you know, from both the sides. That standardization still is not there. But I think it will be coming very soon, and it is a part of our plans that we should be able to do, you know, the right color, and you know, the buyer, they can share with each other that this is what we are looking for. So when we are talking about buyer requirements, so probably if they say, okay, this is what I'm looking for, this is the exact color I'm looking for, so they should be able to get, the supplier should be able to get that color.
Yes, I should be able to see what he's looking for without meeting him face to face.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. That adds value, you know, so that you are better prepared while you go there.
Right.
Thank you.
Hi, Sandeep. Do you, in the categories that you can you hear?
Yeah.
In the categories that you showed on the website, do you also have one for price and for count construction?
Count construction is there, but price is not there, because price, what we have done is we have given a choice. We are giving a choice to the companies to put the price as
On request.
value, medium and high price. But because what happens, the companies initially, I don't think people will be comfortable giving the actual price on the website, on the app. Directly to us. I mean, you'll be, probably they will be happy to give it to the customer, but not to you know, put it on the site. And the price also changes. You know, price fluctuates so much. So I think that is something we avoided for the first time. And later on, as people want, probably we can do it. I mean, for us, putting the price is not a problem. Asking the price is not a problem, but it is a problem for the suppliers to give the price, because the price for them changes for probably country to country, buyer to buyer, time to time. So it's not a standard thing what pricing is, I think.
So when, you know, I'm just taking this a little further in terms of internal competition between denim manufacturers. The moment you put in count and construction, the article can be copied quite quickly. Other than the weave structure, when you give the count and construction, you know, so is that also going to be something that's going to be, you know, that'll be a limitation really, where people who are sharing the information of the article they're producing, or the fabric that they're producing, may not be very willing to put that up on the screen because of the fear of being copied very quickly.
That is the idea we gave. We kept this feature of private products. So private products ultimately means that you are showing this these particular products only to those buyers whom you are comfortable showing those things. So if you're not comfortable showing these details to any particular buyer, you can always hide those. Keep them private. All right. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure making the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sandip. Dear audiences, this is the end of our seminar today. Please come back to us with the topic, How to Connect Denim Supply Chain for Sustainable Development, a Denim Summit by Vitas tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. Thank you very much.